In 1882, during their travels through India and Ceylon, Madame Helena Petrovna Blavatsky and Colonel Henry Steele Olcott were taken to view a property known in those days as Huddlestone Gardens. It consisted of a palatial building on the south bank of the Adyar River. Flanked by ancient trees, the property was suggestive of an enchanting country residence. At first glance, commented the colonel, we knew our future home was found.
People often ask why Madame Blavatsky and Colonel Olcott decided on India as the home for the Theosophical Society. They chose to settle at Adyar, which at that time was a small and undeveloped suburb of Madras, located along India's tropical southeast coast.
The attitude with which they came is demonstrated by that account of how Olcott, when arriving on the soil of India, bent down to worship that soil. They felt that from India had gone out a great deal of wisdom, which is even now contained in the profound teachings not only of the Hindu tradition but Buddhist, Jaina and so on. There was a spirit of tolerance as well here, of universality. India gave a place of shelter to many different people. So since that time it has not merely been the administrative headquarters, but what people have called a flaming center. That means a center from which a spiritual force can flow out into the world. I have heard that when HPB went to the headquarters building, she came down after going up. She declared, the masters want this. Therefore, the center, I think, has an importance which is not merely that of its physical beauty, but of something else which impregnates it. Perhaps it has the conditions which make it favorable for the forces from higher regions to get concentrated and to flow out.
HPB and Colonel Olcott sailed for India from New York City in December of 1878, 3 years after the founding of the Theosophical Society. With a short 2-week stay in London, they finally landed in Bombay 2 months after their United States departure, hoping to establish a base from which to explore and spread theosophical ideas.
From Bombay, they would travel, speak, and write almost non-stop for the next 3 years before discovering the Society's new home. Their popularity grew rapidly. People who had heard about them but had never seen them before felt that some new light was coming. Much of this newfound popularity came after the commencement of the Theosophist magazine in October of 1879. In it were articles on the mystical elements underlying Theosophy.
Theosophy is the archaic wisdom religion, the esoteric doctrine once known in every ancient country having claims to civilization. Hence, Theosophists have existed ever since the first glimmering of nascent thought, and made man seek instinctively for the means of expressing his own independent opinions.
At the time when HPB, through her great writings, pointed out that life is a unity, and she did it wonderfully with so many arguments and citing so many texts from different religions and so on. The concept was quite foreign in the West, and even in India it was partly forgotten. It was certainly not lived. But you see how the idea has caught on. Now there are a lot of ecologists, people who are studying nature, educationists, who are talking about wholeness, about unity, about the interconnectedness of all things upon this earth. There are also other concepts, like the concept that within every human being is the light. That is the light of his own consciousness. It is the only light which can take him on the spiritual path. If you show a beautiful sunset to a blind man, he cannot see it. But if something helps him to become free of his blindness, he can experience all that glory. So it is something like that. Each person has to purify his consciousness, bring clarity, depth, subtlety to it, and therefore he is not dependent totally on gurus, teachers, scriptures, churches, hierarchies. He can bring all this out of himself, which doesn't mean other things cannot help. But this principle of non-dependence is very important. Not to become a slave within the framework of a particular religion or an ideology. Both the fanatical devotee of religion as well as the political ideologist are not free. But this inward freedom to search, to seek, to find the light within oneself, I think is very important and is fundamental to the work of the society.
By the spring of 1882, the Colonel and HPB were in Calcutta towards the end of their second major speaking tour of India. From there they traveled by sea south to Madras, where a delegation of people awaited them. While there, Madame Blavatsky would decide to make Adyar the Society's new home. She displayed her love for the place in a letter to her Aunt Nadia.
It is just wonderful here. What air, what nights, and what marvelous quiet. There is none of the city bustle and street yells. I am sitting down and writing, and gaze over the ocean, sparkling and shoreless, as if alive.
Once the founders had settled in, Colonel Olcott began renovating the headquarters building, which was already over 80 years old. Local craftsmen were commissioned to include symbols of the world's major religions on the walls of the main hall. The northeast section of the hall reveals 3 bas-reliefs representing Hinduism, Zoroastrianism, and Islam, while above there are a series of religious symbols enclosed in circles representing Sikhism, Taoism with its circular yin and yang, and Confucianism. Hinduism is represented by Sri Krishna with his flute and the sacred cow, while Zoroastrianism is represented by Zarathustra, Lord of the Golden Shining. To the far right, Islam is seen as a plaque with a design and verse from the Holy Quran, while over it we see a symbol for Shintoism.
On the west side of the north wall, there are also religious symbols to Christianity and Buddhism. Based on Holman Hunt's painting, The Light of the World, Jesus is seen here holding a lantern while knocking on a door. Next to Christ is the Lord Buddha, sitting in meditation, representing supreme enlightenment. Above these, the Baha'is, Judaism, Jainism, and Co-Freemasonry are also represented. Traditions of the distant past are represented on the south wall and include Mithra, the 7-rayed son of justice, Orpheus, founder of the Greek mysteries, Osiris, the light of lights,